Right. It's like Kalia Davis, Khalil Davis. Like, who do they think they're trying to fool, man? Roll it. We are here. We are here. It's your boy, the coach. Welcome back to the Coach's Huddle where the field meets family. And we are back with the faithful review. The bye week is over. We are on to week 9 to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I couldn't think of a better way to start out my week than with my guy, Tom Jensen. Talk to me, Tom. How you doing today, Tom?
I'm hanging in, Coach. How you been?
I'm doing pretty good, man. No rest for the weary. You know, it's Q4.
Yeah.
They won it all. They won it all. They won everything, man. So the job is jobbing. You know what I'm saying? The relationship is relating. You know, the family is familiar. Everybody's doing the right things right now. And don't look now, but Thanksgiving's coming and everybody wants the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. So, hey, we're in the middle of it all, Tom. I don't know what else to tell you. But what we can do is we can get into some of these topics. Let's get with the tail of the tape. Niners versus Bucs, Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on Fox News. We got 4-4 Niners, our guys, coming in at 500 after a bye, facing the Bucs. The 4-5 Bucs, who themselves are 2-3 at home and have a losing record. Tom, what do you just think about this team? As far as the 49ers, we know the whole story, right? We know what we've been through the whole season. Injuries, no CMC, Juwan Jennings going out, losing Brandon Ayuk for the year. No Dre Greenlaw all year. Losing your Tua Gross-Matos and multiple guys. Tyler Fungo on the defense. Offensively, not being able to find rhythm. Can't get anything going. Just getting Ricky Pearsall stumbling out of the blocks. Finding the emergence of Isaac Garendo. And then the injuries of Jordan Mason. I mean, we can go on and on. Who should want it more going into Sunday afternoon in Tampa Bay? Talk to me, Tom.
I think the Niners should want it more because they're better positioned to win their division and make the playoffs. And so they have to get this done. Because they don't have any margin for error, given their schedule and how tough it's going to be going forward. This is a game they have to win. They can't afford to have any slip-ups. You have to beat the team that you should beat. And they should beat Tampa. Tampa's lost 3, and they've got a lot of problems in terms of their health. With Evans and Godwin gone for this game, that really hurts their pass game. Vita Vea has been limited in practice last 2 days with a hip. So they've got some problems of their own in terms of just being healthy. I love that they compete, and I think that they've got a lot to play for too. Both of these teams have to win this game to set themselves up to win their division, and winning the division might be the only way these teams make the playoffs. So both teams have a lot to play for, but I think the Niners are needing it even more and know that they're the better team coming in.
Well, if you look at them the way they're matched up, offensively, overall, the Niners are ranked second, the Bucs are ranked fifth. If you look at the overall rush, the Bucs are 10th in the league, the Niners are ranked fourth, passing they're right neck and neck next to each other at 4 and 5 respectively, and they're both ranked 6 and 5 respectively in scoring. There's a lot of syntax with this team, right? Between us, right? I feel as though we're kind of facing a different version of ourselves, right? A quarterback that's going to play outside of his frame. He gives you more than what you look at. A defense that's going to play to the hilt. They really thrive off of being aggressive. You know, they absolutely get themselves in trouble when they sit back and try to play with offensive. They need to be attacking at all times. And then you have an offensive line who's gritty and nasty, and there are some of all parts, not necessarily healthy, but you can see a team that is like us. But one thing that I will say is that this defense that the Bucs have, 30th overall, 19th in the rush, 30th in the pass, and 28th in scoring. We got to have our way with this defense. What do you think?
Well, what we have to do is protect Purdy because Tampa is the third highest blitzing team in the league. They're number 8 in sacks. They're number 9 in pressure, so they can bring heat. But if you can protect Purdy, then you can beat this defense. Because, like you said, they're third most yards in the league, third most yards in passing, third most yak, worst in 18 touchdowns given up. So there's a lot of ways you can beat this team. And game plan
Hey, hey, Tom. I think your mic is turning out. Yeah.
Okay. Is
much
this better?
Much better, Tom. Much better.
Sorry about that, guys. So again, it just if you can protect Purdy, then he can pick this defense apart. And you look at it specifically in terms of what they do by position. Second worst in running back receiving yards against. Hello, Christian McCaffrey. Second worst in tight end receiving yards against. Hello, George Kittle. So that allows the Niners to be successful in the red zone if they've got McCaffrey healthy, Kittle healthy, ready to go, and attack this defense. I think that's how the Niners win this game, is that they finally convert in the red zone instead of kicking field goals.
Now, if we're going to get into just guys that they have, right? So we talked about them being a sum of all parts, definitely with a lot of injuries. I mean, if you just look at what they've dealt with as far as their injury report is concerned, Ben Bredinson, offensive lineman, limited. Evan Decker, full. Mike Evans, we all know, is down. But Greg Gaines, their good defensive lineman, is limited. William Golston, another edge rusher, is limited. Bucky Irving, running back, limited. We have also Vita Vea, again, like you mentioned before, with limited with a hip today. So if you look at some of the guys that they bring in, my guy, you want to start understanding some of the guys that you think will be able to attack us, right? You know, we can talk about what they don't have, but they're going to show up with players. And for me, Cade Otton, the tight end, out of Tampa. I mean, he has emerged as Baker Mayfield's go-to option in the absence of injured wide receivers, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, for context, he's had 25 receptions for 258 yards and 3 TDs over the last 3 weeks. During that stretch, Travis Kelce is the only tight end with more catches. I mean, Otton is at least 8 receptions of each of the past 3 games and can become the first tight end since Kelce in 2020 to have 8+ catches and 75+ receiving yards in 4 consecutive games. I mean, this is somebody where we got to just look at Fred Warner and say, he can't beat us.
Right? Exactly. Cade Otton is their key to victory. Yeah. Kansas City had 8 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. Fred has to shut him down. Mm-hmm. And that means that the Niners are going to have to be worried about using the rest of the defense to stop the run. Mm-hmm. Fred can't be part of the run defense. He's got to stay on Otton the whole game and just take him out. If he does, then Tampa can't really go anywhere else. Is the problem. They've got receivers that say, okay, what are they really going to get from Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer? They're limited. Shepard had 4 catches last week. Playing against Kansas City in that level of a defense will help them acclimate. I think they'll be better this week for having played that game. But these guys are not elite. They're not guys that should be starting. So if you can take Otton out and force them to go elsewhere, it's going to be hard for Tampa to be consistent.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that I also like to point out as far as linking on to Cade Otton, I mean, offensively, for me, the offensive guy outside of Cade Otton is Baker Mayfield, in my opinion. Yeah. Baker's a gamer. He'll break the pocket. He'll break script. He'll do whatever it is that you can do to win. One thing that I will say about Baker is that he's a hell of a competitor, but he is a drive reviver. He will keep a drive alive, right? When there is nothing else going on, one thing that I will say is that Baker Mayfield is somebody who will get outside of the pocket. He will make something happen. He's tough as nails. He'll be that itchy scratch. Like, I'm telling you, he's an annoying player to play against. He's somebody also who just won't go away. What did you think our defense should be able to do against Baker Mayfield coming up Sunday afternoon. Being as though that Baker Mayfield, last time I checked, he was leading the NFL in passing touchdowns. Right about now, I know that we're looking at his picks, which are kind of crazy. Baker will turn the ball over. All right. Right now, out of 9 starts, he's 225 completions for 315 attempts for 2,389 yards. And right now, I mean, you'd say to yourself, you know, for what Baker Mayfield gets paid, you can't really scrutinize him much. I think he's adequately paid for what he brings to the table. But what do you think Baker Mayfield brings to the table, and how do you think we'll be able to face him Sunday afternoon?
The main thing, as you said, is Baker competes, and he always keeps a play alive. He's tough to bring down. So for the Niners, the key is you need Bosa and Floyd to beat the matchup at tackle, but you're going up against Tristan Wirfs and Goddard. Those guys can play. And so you have to find a way to get to them. And once you beat them, get to Baker and bring him down. That's not easy. Baker isn't just a good escape artist, he's tough to tackle. And so you have to find a way to close and finish. I think that's going to be the key for the Niner edges in this game is you have to finish. You can't just pressure. Now, there is the stat that Bosa has where it's 3 pressures for interceptions, and that might happen in this game given that Baker is prone to throwing picks. So you can do that, but to consistently stop drives, you need to finish on Mayfield. That's the task for the edges. We need something from Leonard Floyd for once. He has to show up in this game.
Yeah, pressure on Baker Mayfield is going to be imperative this game because, they may not have the back to actually generate that running game, but they got the offensive line. That's why I tend to believe Baker Mayfield is really prone to scrambling. It's just due to the fact that they've got a good offensive line. I mean, for what they bring coming in with Wirfs, Bredesen, Barton, Mock, and Gadecki, that's a solid O-line across the board, right? And they play very well together. They just don't have the back to capitalize it. It could also be something where one thing I will tell you is that the Bucs, they like to pass the ball around. Baker will throw picks. But if they get into a little bit of groove on the ground, it's all but over. I mean, this isn't really a good offense as far as the receivers are concerned, and Jarrett, Shepard, and Palmer, what they have, Trey Palmer, that is. But for what it's worth, if you let Baker Mayfield and Otten have like a 1-2 game out there, it could be a problem.
Yeah, you have to keep Tampa out of rhythm. If they get in a rhythm, they're a threat to score. They've put up some pretty big numbers this year in individual games. They've taken on good defenses and scored well. So let's see what the Niners can do. But I think that hopefully they can keep them out of rhythm and out of balance. And especially if Fred can limit Otten, I think that that's going to be a problem for Tampa. Because where else are they going to go? Where else are they going to make things happen? Their running game is by committee without Irving. Their receivers aren't that good. How else are they going to move the ball? I think the Niners can limit them.
I agree as well. Well, we'll find out soon enough. I'll let you know. Definitely. Moving into our next topic, the second half of the season's prediction is hope. As the season hits its midpoint, can the 49ers turn things around, examining their potential trajectory, playoff hopes, and key changes needed to finish strong? So going into the rest of the season, we've got the Bucs coming up that we've been talking about. After that, we go see Seattle. No, Seattle comes and sees us, right? Then we go and see the Packers. Then we go and see the Bills. Then we got a 2-week homestand with the Bears and the Rams. We go out to Miami, come home to see the Lions, and then we finish in Arizona. Right now, I'd say the margin of error for the Niners is 3 games. I'd say 3. So where would you say is the predictions in the silver lining of where's the far margins? What can't we do for this season?
I think that the first thing is you have to win 3 straight. Beat Dallas and now take care of Tampa and Seattle. That's a must. That puts them in position to get to the playoffs. Then you go to Green Bay and Buffalo, and part of that's going to be what's the weather? It's late November, early December in Green Bay and Buffalo. Right now the weather forecast for both of those is dry. If it stays dry, then they're in good shape. But there have been weather forecasts at Green Bay for snow, for rain. If that happens, then Purdy is less effective, more turnover prone. What happens there? Then you come home, Chicago and the Rams have to win both of those. Yeah. As Run the Damn Ball Kyle says in the chat, can't lose another division game. Absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
They have to sweep them. So Seattle coming up next week, and then the Rams at home, and then finish the season at Arizona. They have to win all three of those. Basically, the way that I need is just we have to find a way. Sorry about the mic if that's a problem.
No, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think that they have to sweep those. They can. The problem is the Rams game. That's the one that I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the season. Is if they beat the Rams, they can win the division at 10-7. And if they beat Tampa Bay, then they're probably the 3 seed. And that sets them up well. If they lose to the Rams, then they could be 9-8, and then that's a problem. They could miss everything. So to me, that Rams game is the season right now, the way things look. I think the Niners will win their 3 straight, and then it's a question of what's the weather in Green Bay and Buffalo, and how do they play against the Rams, and that defines the season.
Well, I mean, I definitely feel the Rams game. I definitely feel like the Rams games is the end all to be all, in my opinion. Right now, they lead the division, and my only thing is that you look at what the Commanders are doing in the NFC East, right? They're going to win the division, right? If not the Eagles, right?
Well, but they're both out of reach is the thing for the Niners. They can't make it as a wild card.
They can't. That's my thing, is that there are other teams that are not going to win their division that are doing far better than us right now. That's the point that I'm trying to make, is that even if the Commanders lose their division, they're definitely going to get over us, right, for what they've been doing the entire season. So right now, the 4 games that we've lost, the early 4 that we've lost, be it as though we've lost in Minnesota, 2 divisional games with losing to the Cardinals and the Rams, and then also with the Chiefs, really is what has hurt us the worst is that Vikings, is those 3 NFC losses. That's killed us, right? So, in my opinion, really the predictions, the hope for us right now is, number one, if we do lose, I think we can't lose any more than 2 games for the rest of the season. That's my opinion. And if we do lose 2 games, at least one of them has to be an NFC opponent. At least one. So in my opinion, we've got an appetite for losing one more NFC game.
That's going to be hard to do when you're playing Green Bay, the Rams, and Detroit.
Yeah, but I understand that. But I'm just going by what the rest of the league is going to do, and the fact that we already have 3 NFC losses, right?
Yeah.
Do you think? Honestly, talk to me. Do you think that we could lose more?
Yes.
All right, tell me why.
Well, I throw out the wild card. I don't think the wild card is possible.
Okay.
Green Bay is the last wild card team right now. They're 6-3, and the other teams are 6-2. That's out of reach. So the only way the Niners can make it is by winning their division, and then it's what is their record in the overall compared to whoever wins the NFC South. If that's Tampa Bay, if the Niners win this game, they're the 3 seed despite not having the best record, and that's, to me, that's their ceiling. They can get to the 3 seed provided they beat Tampa Bay and the Rams. So I think they can lose 3 games and still make the playoffs. They can still be 10-7 and win the division. But I agree with you that there's no path to making the playoffs as a wild card. That's out. That's gone.
So right now, for them to get through, in your opinion, that they for them to get through, they absolutely have to win the division.
Yes, it's the only way.
Damn.
Because you've already got 2 teams at 6-2 and a third at 6-3. If Green Bay wins the game at Lambeau, the wild card's gone. And that's 3 weeks from now. So it's not that far out. But they can still lose to Green Bay, Buffalo, and Detroit. They just can't lose to the Rams. And if they beat Tampa Bay, it's just you look at it just from the seeding perspective. They can get to the 3 seed and it's realistic, and they can do that even if they lose 3 games. Because they'll have the head-to-head over Tampa Bay in the NFC South.
Okay.
Now, if Atlanta wins the NFC South, they'll have a better NFC overall record or better common opponents or whatever the tiebreaker is there. The Niners would go down to a 4 seed. So what we need is for the Niners to beat Tampa Bay and then Tampa to recover, getting some players back, and still winning the NFC South. That's the Niners' path to the 3.
All right. So we have to hope on the reemergence of down players that we have, right? And we're going to get into that later into the show. But also, we have to win our division. So right now we're hoping for. So really, it ain't even the Rams, because the way things could shake out, we could be fighting for our lives against Arizona.
Sure.
For in the last week of the season.
Because we'll have to win all of the division games to win the division. But the Rams are the most important opponent because they should have the better record. They'll be the team that we'll have to worry about. In theory, we beat Seattle at Easy Bake in 2 weeks. We beat, hopefully, the Rams at home, and then take care of business against Arizona. And then you're 10-7, and you've won the division outright. So the worst you do is the 4 seed. But wild card's gone. I don't even look at wild card anymore. There's
too many
that's unrealistic.
There's too many high level middling teams this year. You know what I mean? There's too many high level guys that they're not going to do much, but they've made a mess of things. Like the Commanders only losing 2 games, right? This does suck. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, this is like poetic justice. Like, we're almost being strapped by our own standard. So now winning the division isn't even something that we have to aspire to. It's literally what is going to save us. We have to win the division.
Yeah, the division is do or die. If they don't win the division, I don't see a path for them making it as wild card.
Man. Well, you heard it here on the Coach's Huddle. The next topic. All right, man. What I want to get into is the next topic, which basically is the trade deadline standstill. We heard a lot of names swirling around the 49ers. At one point, there was receivers that were talked about coming to the 49ers, definitely some corners, big edge rushers that the 49ers had called in and asked about. One of the biggest names that I heard was the tackle from Tennessee, Simmons.
Yeah.
What's this guy's name? Simmons, the defensive tackle from Tennessee, probably one of the top 3 tackles in the league. There was reports that the Niners offered a first and a fifth for him to bring him in. Now, in my opinion, that's swinging for the fences. That's not trying to add a guy. That's almost like Christian McCaffrey levels, what you're trying to do. In a sense,
I worry about that because it's saying that if we have Cedric Simmons, we can get to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure that's true, but that's what that trade offer is saying is we're one piece away.
We're one piece away. Exactly. Right. If you're willing to give up a first round pick with this roster, in my opinion, you're trying to say yo, we're close. We're still fighting. Right. I don't think that would have been a good trade for the Titans. Right.
Well, for either side, the Niners shouldn't give up that much and then not go to the Super Bowl. Doesn't make sense to me.
All right. So with what we have in the building right now, I already had the question inside of the topic. We already know that they didn't make moves at the trade deadline, right? They only made one. They signed Khalil Davis, the defensive tackle out of the Houston Texans. Was staying put a smart decision, or did San Francisco miss a chance to fill key gaps?
Yes and no. I think that they had some opportunities. The part that I like is that they're now valuing the draft. They're valuing keeping the picks, which is new. And I think that's because they had a good draft for once. Mm-hmm. So that part of it I like. The part I don't like is that by not making a splash move, they're saying that we think McCaffrey and Greenlaw can carry us, but that's a risky move given the risk of re-injury for both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried that they'll over-depend on them to try to make it to the Super Bowl again, and I'm not sure that that can happen. And I don't like if either one of them gets hurt, that's it. It just it leaves them with no margin for error to not really do anything of substance at the deadline.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I will say is that I kind of like the fact that we didn't make moves. I think that we have a lot of guys that are on their way back. I mean, Yatur Gross-Matos is on his way back. We've already talked about CMC. We're going to talk about him more later in the show. Juwan Jennings is a huge name that nobody's talking about that we're getting back.
Yeah, that's really key.
It's a really key addition back to what we do. I mean, brings the level of toughness that we need in the receiving corps, quite honestly. Somebody that necessarily isn't all about numbers or route running, but he's about getting open. Right. You look at there's a possibility of Kalia Davis coming back. Right. And there's also word about us being able to find our way down into the middling parts of the postseason. And there might be a window for Javon Hargrave to come back. Right now, if you look at where we stand with our team, we are a talented roster. I think one of the biggest reasons why we've lost a couple of games this year is because we just quite frankly haven't been healthy. We could talk about coaching and the lack thereof and not being prepared. But one of the things that you can say is that one thing that we haven't seen this year, I think that's kind of put everybody back on their feet, is we don't look like ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to have penalties, talk about the have penalties, talk about the energy, talk about the effort. But when you start to see other teams that have guys that don't look like our guys, that's when it starts feeling a little weird. Like, whoa, these guys do football better than us. That's a difference, right? Like we're getting outclassed, right? So for us, I feel as though that there is an element of we really haven't been playing with a full deck, right? And that can be exacerbated by a team that necessarily has lost a lot of its depth over the years, right? So one thing that I will say is that the mark of good teams, in my opinion, the mark of good teams are teams that can grow from within and develop. I'm glad that we've kind of gotten off of the free agency teat, if you will, right? That's what bad teams do, right? And if you're a good team, you pluck from the top of the heap on exactly what you want, and then you move on. You don't try to make a swing in the middle of the season, right? Nobody gets the guy in the middle of the season that turns it all the way around. And I feel like for us, trying to go find that one player fix would have been fool's gold. I'm very glad that we didn't do it. And then another thing that I wanted to bring up is that, I mean, can we keep a first round pick? Goodness, we just lost him for 3 years. Like we only had one for 1 year and we're going right back into having a disjointed draft. I mean, my word. And that leads me to my next point. Does that show that these guys are nervous? Right? Are they mortgaging are they mortgaging the future? Are they mortgaging the future just to make it out of this season?
Well, if that offer was made and accepted, yes. You and I would both be saying this was a panic move by Shanahan to try to make it back to the Super Bowl. And you would definitely be mortgaging the future. In addition, as much as I like Simmons, this draft is loaded on the defensive line. That's where the pick should be. And so look at what's happening now with Jared Verse, for example. He's tearing up the league. He goes around the pick that the Niners would have in the next draft. And you're going to pass that up to get a proven quantity. You know, as much as I love Simmons, you can get a high impact player on a rookie deal, which is another thing this team needs, and go forward with that player. So I look at this team's record and say that they're going to be high teens, low 20s probably. And at that part in this draft, there's a number of defensive ends and defensive tackles that would all be great fits here. So I am happy that they didn't make that move. You're not just one player away, and you have to value what that draft pick can be next year in a draft that's loaded for what you need most: defensive tackle, defensive end.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that they weren't players in the trade market. Right now, what's the difference? Looking your best losing or looking your worst losing? I mean, either way, you're losing. You know what I mean? And, there's a part of me that felt like, look, man, are you guys reaching out to save face, to be seen trying your best to go get a Super Bowl? Or do you honestly believe that going to go get a guy right now is exactly what you need to do? Especially with all of the guys that we have leaving this year. It just wouldn't have been a smart move. If we would have got Cedric Simmons, I just would have felt like, man, this is Javon Hargraves all over again. Like, what are we doing? Spending first round picks and real capital on guys just to pace us through the season? Like, guys, like, come on. And then what are we going to do next year? So, I'm glad that things didn't work out, honestly, because it's obvious that they wanted to make the move. But for a first round pick, no. We just spent 3 years without one. And then we got one back, and we couldn't even get him on the field until week 6. You know what I'm saying?
They have to value picks more, and that's the one thing I like about this deadline is they didn't give up picks. And I think that that's a good move for them, is that you have to say, look at what we did in this draft. We can repeat that, and this is a more talented draft overall than last year. Last year was top heavy. This year has more depth throughout. Whoa, I can't hear myself. And this draft, it has what they need early, and so if they make the right moves, they can go forward. I want to see this team place enough of a value on staying a contender rather than pushing all the chips into the middle of the table and making it only about this year.
Yeah, I think that they kind of did so well with putting a team together within probably the first 2-3 years of their regime, and they just kept adding on to process that slowly but surely, after losing guys, being a slave to your development, Azeez Al-Shaair can't afford them. DJ Jones can't afford him. Kendrick Bourne can't afford him. It just Mike McGlinchey can't afford him. A lot of the guys that we lost weren't because they didn't want to be here anymore. It's because we overdeveloped the worth of the player, but when it came time for them to go to the open market, there was nothing we could do to sign them. We just couldn't keep them. So right now, I kind of want those problems again. It's time for us to kind of reverse it back. Right now, for what it's worth, and we're getting into the topic right now, but there was a time where we were worried about our own guys coming back. But as it stands right now, we're sitting here waiting on a 28-year-old running back who isn't even drafted by us, who's overpaid and who got one of the biggest running back deals in the league to come in and save our bacon. It's just not where you want to be when you talk about becoming a homegrown organization, right? You look at, how can I say, built, not bought, right? And with that, let's just go into the next topic. So with the next topic, CMC's return and his impact on the offense. Now, CMC's been gone all year, okay? Offensive Player of the Year, class personified. I mean, what else do you want to talk about? Last year, 16 games played, 16 games started, 272 rushing attempts, over 400 touches with 67 receptions, 1,459 yards rushing, 5.4 yards a carry, and 21 total touchdowns. I mean, last year Christian had the season of his career, right? This year we've got Achilles tendonitis in both legs. We've got being ramped up, then being ramped down, clandestine meetings out in Germany. You know what I mean? It's all over the place. Finally, we're getting them back on the field. And then we had reports that Christian McCaffrey could have played. Christian McCaffrey had an interview with Richard Sherman where he tells Richard Sherman that he could have played if he really wanted to. He could have played versus Dallas, but they just wanted to make sure that he was okay. Now, in my opinion, if he could have played against Dallas and they wanted to make sure, that means that if it was a playoff situation, he could have definitely played against the Chiefs, in my opinion, when I hear that, right? So he's really been about, I would like to say, maybe 70% to 80% for about 3 weeks now. What do you think his impact is going to be on the offense? What is his impact going to be on the team?
Dramatic, especially in terms of the red zone. Is that with Christian McCaffrey, they were one of the best red zone teams in the league last year. Mm-hmm. Without him, they are bottom 3. That shows the impact that McCaffrey has. And it's not just what he can do when he catches the ball, but the gravity that he creates on the field, that the defense has to respond to him. They have to react to him, and they have to be worried about him. So in Tampa's case, you're number 31 or 30 in the league in running back receiving yards. The thing you're going to be most worried about in the red zone is dealing with McCaffrey as a receiver. You then assign defenders to deal with that, opens up the rest of the field. That's what the Niners need from McCaffrey. Not just what he creates with the ball, but the gravity that he attracts from the defense. And I think that's going to help the Niners tremendously going forward.
Now, when you look at usage rate, what do you think we should do? Is he definitely one of those guys that, if he's ready to go, throw him out there, just let him play? Should Kyle have a plan for him? Should he be paced out?
He should.
Does there need to be some type of uniformity to his usage?
I think that he has to have a pitch count. To protect him, you need to say there's only so many reps we're going to go with. But what concerns me is that Kyle said in the press conference, are there any limitations? And he said not necessarily. That he didn't rule out the possibility of a 2023 workload game for Christian. I think he should have. It's just, what are you doing? If you want to make the playoffs and if you want to do anything in the playoffs, you're going to need Christian healthy. So I think the way to go is to be cautious given the risk of re-injury, especially for an Achilles, where that one play and you're done. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what they can do. I hope that Kyle will be more judicious and be careful, but Kyle's going to Kyle and Christian's going to Christian in terms of wanting to compete. He hasn't been able to play for this long. He's going to want to play. And so it's up to Kyle to be smart about this and say, this is one of the most important assets on the team. We got to protect it. I hope that he distributes the carries. You have to. You have to.
Dude, Tom, if these guys just try to run it back like it's 2023 and Christian opens the game with 20 plus carries and Kyle just brute forces him, like, come on, bro. Like, that would be ridiculous, Tom. Absolutely ridiculous. What type of usage do you see for him? I'll go.
Go ahead.
For me, I see CMC being used 10 carries, 10 to 15 carries a game, no more than 15. 5 to 8 targets, all right? Use them judiciously and make sure that you give good carries to Jordan Mason while they're both on the field. You can't just have this singular attack where as soon as Jordan Mason's on the field, we know what won't happen, right? Or as soon as Christian McCaffrey's on the field, we know exactly what will happen. I just feel like the running attack has almost told on Kyle, where he hid Jordan Mason from us for years. Right? And the league. And it wasn't enough. We saw glimpses and everybody kind of saw it, but it wasn't enough for it to be egregious, for everybody to step and say, all right, Kyle, enough, man. You need to be starting in this kid. He needs to play. But now that we know what we have in Jordan Mason, and dare I say Isaac Guerrero, I just don't think those Christian McCaffrey days are there anymore. Those all game, he gets every carry, he gets every target. I believe that if the fans start realizing, like, hey, man, Christian is like actually the only running back on the field. Kyle, why is it Mason on the field with Christian? Why aren't we getting Isaac Guerrero and Christian McCaffrey split right now? Why aren't we going split backs with these guys? What are we doing right here? I just think that there's so many elements to his offense that he keeps cloak and daggered because he wants to be able to use guys for specific roles. And that's kind of gotten away from him this year because of the depth issues and the injuries. So he's had to just use everybody, really. Dare I say, like a real coach, but he's had to use, everybody. Also, you know what, D's, I like this. Patrick Taylor Jr. This is somebody else that Kyle has to shown, hey, damn it, I got to use this guy. I got to use him. I got to put Patrick Taylor Jr. on the field. And he's shown he can close games, right? So it's almost as if Kyle is a chef and he really knows how to make a fire-ass coq au vin. Like, I'm talking about he can make the hell out of that dish. But because the kitchen's been messed up a couple of times, he's had to mess around and make fish and chips one night. And like, man, he just had to make some baked chicken and vegetables another night. And we've actually had different recipes. And even though Kyle isn't confident in what he's cooked and what he's given us because he feels as though I shine best when I get to really put this dish together and marinate down that wine and put that thyme in and those chicken thighs. But we're all saying like, no, dude, I really liked your fish and chips, man. Not for nothing. Hey, Kyle, I know you really like to make all of that fancy shit, but when you made that hamburger on Friday night, that shit was fire. It kind of worked. And I know this is kind of like some of the stuff that isn't like your best. It's not necessarily your recipes that you're proud of. You're not going to get any Michelin stars for this stuff. But, brother, you're one note. You got to switch it up. And you can cook other things. I just think that because we've been given other flavors of the offense, we've seen Isaac Guerrero run the ball. We know what it's like for him to close a game. We can know that he can do it, right? We've seen Patrick Taylor get used in closing out games, running in between the tackles. We've seen what his skill set is. We know what he can do. Right? The same thing with Jordan Mason. Now, because of these guys, they've been used by hook or crook. We're not going to get it under duress, maybe, but they've been used. They've all been kind of burned into our frontal lobe now. We can't unsee it, is basically what I'm trying to say. And now, while I feel like Kyle runs the risk of trying to run an offense that is gone, that's quite frankly isn't here anymore. Because even if you ran the same offense, this is something that people don't understand. A team literally lasts for a year, one point in time. That's it. You can literally have the same people on that team down to the water boy, and that team will not be the same. They are all older. Injuries are different. Motivation is different. Money is different. Contract negotiations are different. What people want to get into is different. What I'm trying to say is that the fact that Kyle keeps trying to run an offense in a scheme year to year to year, and we can't even count on a football player being the same athlete he was months before he played in another season, should let you know how asinine it is for him not to be ready to adapt and change, to move forward with what we have. So my thing is that Kyle has put himself in a position where we've seen more shades of this offense in 8 weeks than I think I can care to say that we've seen in 2 years.
Because of the injuries.
Because of the injuries. Yeah. Well, so now all I want to see is a continuation of these guys, of this maturation process going against Tampa. I think that's what's going to help us, right? But if we try to get back into the blue 14, ready? Come on, we know the cadence of this damn offense. Yeah. We know it. Come on. Blue 14, ready? And come on, man. And we get into this can, and we get into here comes Juice. Like, come on, man. Grant does it better, but you know what I mean. Shout out to Grant.
Yeah. I'm picturing Grant shuffling right now.
Yes. If we get into the same old bag, man, we can get embarrassed.
No, yeah. He has to use the ingredients he has. Use the full kitchen. Yeah. And first off, I want to say that was brilliant, Coach.
Thank you.
So well said. And to your point, what we need, continuing the cooking analogy, we need Julia Kyle instead of Julia Child.
We need Julia Kyle. Today, we'll be making roast and parsnips.
We know your beef bourguignon is brilliant, but you have to cook the whole cookbook.
Come on, man.
You've got all these ingredients that are incredibly tasty. Use them. Don't just say that, well, all these guys were injured, so I was forced to play Jordan Mason. Oh, who knew? He's really good.
Yeah.
I was forced to play Juwan Jennings. Same thing. And so it's just, look, you have to realize you have to leverage everything. And that makes you more diverse. It makes you less predictable. And it makes everybody contribute to the whole of the offense. Makes you far more dynamic. You're spreading the ball around. The defense can't just focus on one thing. There's all these different ingredients you just keep throwing at them. Defense can't deal with it. That's part of the beauty and power of this team is what it can do with all of the talent, not just some of it. I know that Kyle is itching to get CMC back out there and do his CMC gig, but you've now discovered what Mason can do, what Garendo can do, what the rookies can do. Use them, all of them. And the defense is going to say, damn, how do we deal with all this stuff? They just keep coming at us in waves. That's what the Niners need to be, as opposed to Kyle's greatest hits.
He needs to allow men to blossom, right? Yeah. You know, we found out about Jeff Wilson Jr. We found out about Tevin Coleman. I mean, these are guys that you brought in, but they found their own role and their own voice within this offense, right? Let guys find their way through. It can't always be about what guys you trust to do something in practice and then you never roll guys out. I mean, Jesus Christ. You can't Trey Lance everybody. You got to let them play.
And based on what happened with Trey Lance, you shouldn't go down that road again.
Come on, man. Hello.
Yeah. So it's and Dee's saying in the chat, Jordan Mason's hurt. Yeah, that's true. Jordan Mason had the blue non-contact jersey on in practice today, so he's still not 100%. Debo had that also, so both of those guys are kind of iffy going into the Tampa game. We'll see how much run they get. But that doesn't mean you still can't go to Garendo. It doesn't mean you still can't use Patrick Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
You have to protect CMC. Yeah, he's 100% now. He's ready to go. Keep him that way until you get to the playoffs. Don't just say, oh, boy, now I can use him, and then you take him down to a point where he can get hurt again. You can't afford to do that. You have to be smart in your usage.
I agree. I definitely agree. Let's get into our next topic. Let's close this puppy out. The Niners need a boost to make a playoff run. Who must elevate their game? Who must elevate their game, breaking down key players, and who can help secure wins and solidify San Francisco's postseason dreams? So we've already talked about this. The Niners have to win the division. There are way too many, basically, let's just say it. Last year was a down year in the league. There are a lot of bad teams. There's not a lot of bad teams this year. It's particularly on the NFC, right? There's good teams. We talked about, strength of schedule with the Commanders, but they are 7-2. They look good, right? So,
and they just added Marshawn Lattimore. That's going to help.
That's a huge, damn you, Adam Peters, right? So, what do we need to do? Who needs to step up? I have a guy in mind that I feel as though is going to step up bigly for us coming into the playoff picture. But before I get into it, what I want to do is just set the stage. I want to get into a player that you have your eye on, that you think is going to be able to help us out. Then also just an element of our team that may be lacking that needs to come through so we can be able to have a good playoff run, something that's going to be able to carry us into the playoffs that we need to work on through the season. So my guy My player is Juwan Jennings. I think that
was fine.
I think that
people are sleeping on Juwan because he's missed a couple games, but let's remember how important he's been.
It's been huge. I think him not being here has been a huge problem. I mean, you want to talk about us missing out on Christian McCaffrey and Debo being out a couple of games. And, Juwan Jennings not being on this offense is a problem. The middle of the defense the middle of the field on offense has been all but locked down without him at receiver. I think at the very least, he gives Brock a big target to throw the ball to with anticipation. He also beats up on secondaries and has to make them willing tacklers, or he himself will go score. He's a willing blocker in the run game, brings a nasty element to the game, especially on the edge. I mean, damn near blocks like a tight end, a move tight end on the edge. And on top of it, he has some of the best hands on the team and one of the best route runners. I mean, in my opinion, a healthy Juwan Jennings is something when BA's not there, Debo's not getting open, they're crowding the offense, they're crowding the line of scrimmage and packing the box. And before you know it, it's third and Juwan, or it's Juwan Jennings coming out in a wheel route or a stop and go or a sluggo. So I think that him not being here is really kind of taking the teeth away from our offense. It makes us less aggressive. And I think that Juwan Jennings being here not only helps space things out, but he gives us a tenacity, but I think he also gives us an open and willing target in the red zone, being able to help us out where it's not just George down there, but getting back Christian McCaffrey and Juwan Jennings all but helps helps us out in the red zone. I think that's an immediate night and day uptick for us in the red zone. One thing that I'll say as far as an element of our game that I feel like needs to get better, and it will that will carry us through next season. I could talk about the run defense, but I'm not going to be selfish. That's low hanging fruit. But it's true. It's true. But running between the tackles, particularly 3rd and 1, short yardage downs, getting a yard, getting 2 yards. We cannot be scared of those downs, okay? 2 downs in a row against the Chiefs. We went 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, turnover and downs. Kyle didn't run the ball for another 15 plays in a row. We get in games where we see what Jordan Mason could do against the Jets. He's had great games against one of the best defenses in the league in the Minnesota Vikings. But for what it's worth, I just don't think that Kyle trusts the offensive line to be able to just get a yard, get it, what I like to call an ignorant yard, right? Just get it. And what I mean by ignorance is there ain't no design, there ain't no rhyme or reason to it. Everybody in the building knows that we run and trap or that we run and dive and stop us. And, I know you can sit here and say, oh, well, we don't have the bodies for it, but a lot of it is an attitude, quite honestly. It's knowing that, hey, it's 3rd and 1, we're getting this yard. For me, I think that the Niners need to start understanding that you can only engineer around a win, but for so much. As the season comes to an end, it's just like a drive. All right? Look at the season like a drive. Week 1 is the 1-yard line. Okay. By the time you get to week 10, week 12, week 13, you're in the 30-yard line. You don't flip the field and you're in the green zone. That means there ain't a lot of space out there. Okay. Real estate becomes real precious, and winning games is not all about airing it out. Options become a lot fewer because injuries have set in, process of the way you do things on your offense have set in. So you become more of a caricature of yourself because of the tape, right? So all of your habits start setting in. And some things that you need to understand is that as the season goes on, a lot of the sins of your team or vulnerabilities of your team that you have shied away from, they all come roaring back in the end of the season. They do, because those issues just get exacerbated. So we have to face short yardage downs early. We haven't done it for the first half of the season. In my opinion, if we keep running away from those instances during games, we are going to get found out by teams and we're going to start getting tilted because of it. So it's all about facing what you got to do now so you don't got to do it later. And if we do it later, then they going to make the decision for us. So my opinion is also I want Juwan, obviously, but short yardage downs. We got to just start running the ball and getting that yard. I'm tired of us going, 5 wide on 3rd and 2, or 3-by-1 on 3-by-1 on the 18-yard line. Like, no. Get in I, get in double tight, get in ace, get in offset, do what you got to do, but get the yard. Like, damn it, sometimes when you need to get a yard on the drive, it doesn't have to be that scientific, so that's just my take on it. Go ahead, Tom. I know I took most of the topic.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I agree with it, is that it has to be an expectation.
Yeah.
You're showing faith and an investment in your offensive line and saying, it's 3rd and 1, we're taking the ball up the middle and we're getting that first down. And it's just, we will ourselves forward. And you make that investment now so that you get in a playoff situation. It's 3rd and 1 against Detroit, and you have to get this first down or it's over. You have to know, based on what you did in week 9, week 10, week 11, that you can get that yard. You just have to focus and get the execution through and make it happen. Hat in a hat, execution, will, faith. All of that needs to come together. That's something they have to do. And I agree with you that investment needs to be made now, because it's pay me now or pay me later. You don't want to have to find out that you can't get a 3rd and 1 conversion on a running play in a playoff game. You have to know in the regular season, when you need that, you get that. That has to be part of the mindset of this team. Right now, it's not there. It needs to be. Kyle going, 5 wide is just showing no faith in your O-line. That's not the way to play. You have to show them, I believe in you guys. I know we're going to get this. Let's get it done. So, Juwan was my player that I thought needed to step up. Defensively, the guy that hasn't stepped up is Leonard Floyd. It's just, where are you, dude? Yeah, he's nowhere. I mean, we know that there's some players that just don't have the ability, like Devondre Campbell. It's just, he's done. Leonard Floyd isn't done yet, but we haven't seen anything from him. Where is it? Now. And so that's something they need. The secondary, they need to build on what they just had in their last game. Jair played his best game of the year. He needs to keep building on that, because he's had a bad season up until that point. He needs to keep getting better. They need to drag him through. Malik Mustafa had a good game. They need to keep him going. And I'm a little bit worried about the rookies in terms of, will there be a rookie wall? If there is, this team's done. These guys have to be able to step it up and play and show as much faith and confidence in them, coach them up, do what you have to do. But that secondary is young. It needs confidence and it needs to perform, especially against the run. The wide 9 calls for the linebackers and the secondary to fill. They've got to do that and do it well. It's not good enough right now. The execution level has to improve.
Agreed. So right now, they need to be able to get guys going as far as the rest of the year is concerned with the younger guys. We've also brought up Juwan Jennings, brought up the short yardage downs, handling that issue before the league handles it for us. Also, this is a very good call. I would love to talk about this. I think Gip coming back for the secondary is great as a leader. I cannot agree with this comment more. I think that Tashaun Gibson coming back, especially with a player like Malik Mustafa being out there now, and Jair Brown finally getting kind of like the starting nod with presumably Talanoa Hufanga being out for the year, maybe. Possibly the year. Yeah, in my opinion, we need more guys who can teach these young boys up, have some more continuity back there. He knows the offense. If we do need a backup, we got somebody who actually started with us when we were actually playing at our best. My only thing is that if he can still run it, if he's in shape, which I wouldn't play his professionalism, I would hope he would be. Excuse me. But this is the type of moves that you like to see, because we need more of the locker room coming together. That's just one of the things about these 4 losses that I would have to say is concerned me the most, is that we just don't look like ourselves, and not even from a playing standpoint, but from effort, standard, pride. I'd like to see us kind of see shades of who we were last year coming out of the bye.
Yeah, I want to see the identity that they had in 2023, where you knew what this team was, you knew what they were about, and they did too. And it's just, we're going to do what we do and we're going to win the game as a result of that. That team needs to return. I like the comment from Maxime in the chat that Gibson should settle down the communication issues. That's true too. They have had a lot of trouble on bunch formations. Communication isn't there. You need somebody like Gibson to tell them, here's what you guys need to do, and somebody that can be a leader on the field and a mentor on the sideline. I think that Gibson is going to be more important than Khalil Davis in terms of deadline additions. I think Gibson will help them. He's an upgrade over Odom. He's a veteran that's made great plays in the playoffs. He's seen everything. He's somebody that can help you, especially as you get later into the year. And he hasn't played yet, so he's still got some tread left on the tire because he hasn't played so far.
Yeah, he's coming in. He's kind of giving us the Ty Law treatment, coming off the bench, coming in off the street. But I like it, man. I really do. Let's get some super chats out of the way before we head up out of here, man. What do we got here? There we go. Gene Cali, $4.99. Thank you. Debo isn't the only one walking. Trent, Kittle, and Juice were all walking when the Cards stripped the ball from Mason. Chase wasn't the only Cadillac. Yeah, I give you that. You know what I'm saying? They're getting older. And they had rest. And, let's not forget the trend of this team. I've called every game that we've had this year. And the trend of this team that I can tell you now is that the defense is always going to start out hot. There's still DNA. There's still championship DNA in that defense. They're going to come out with pride. They're going to come out hot, even if they make blunders early, a la Arizona with Kyler Murray going on that 50-yard run early in the game. After that, they bowed up. This defense played well. They bowed up early against Kansas City, right? The mark of this team is, can the offense start as hot as the defense? And if they can, then we can get continuity, complementary football going. But if the defense gets 3 to 4 3 and outs, or a pick, or a turnover on downs, or a punt, 2 punts, and this offense hasn't scored within the first quarter or within the second quarter, or all they've put up is 3 points, that's when things get ugly. So it's really, we are a true complementary football team where we've got to reward a good defense early. And as an offense, we've got to start early, or at the very least, understand that the mark of success for our offense isn't always touchdowns. Sometimes we have to literally stay on the field to give our defense a chance to get back. And I feel like that's a lot of things that Kyle, he necessarily hasn't had to worry about. That's one thing that I've noticed that I don't like about certain coaches, and what I grew up, playing and coaching, is that sometimes you get around coaches where they get really good players, and there's either 2 things that happens with coaches when they get like a really good team, right? Either one, it's almost like they become like a servant to the team, right? Like they're so grateful that what they have, because they know what it's like to coach the kid that's not necessarily there yet, right? So when you get the 4 3s and the 6 6s and the 400-pound bench and the 600-pound squat, when you get that stuff, you treat it like you treat it with reverence. You're like, I know what this kid is like. I know what this kid can do, right? And that's some of the things that you do once you first start. But then you get these other coaches where they kind of get spoiled and they get real high on the hog where, hey, he's got to be ready. If he's hurt, he's hurt. If he's healthy, he's healthy. It's like, oh, well, hey, I told him that, he needs to be 3 yards above the numbers and turn around and be at the top of his stem. If he can't do that, it becomes not coaching it becomes, hey, kid, let's stay after practice and let's work on this too. If you can't get it right, we'll find somebody else who will. Right? Yeah. It's two totally different ball games. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And you can't coach this. You can't coach this team this way. Not anymore. There used to be an energy with this team where we were so good and the margin of error was so small because we had so many top end players that just to be a a depth player on this team. It took, we were all fine with a rookie messing up one series, one quarter, and we were all fine with guys sitting down. TDP, no good. Shelf him. Sermon, no good. Shelf him. Drake, nope, no good. No good. Couple of years, nope, no good. Shelf him. Aaron Banks, couple of games, no good. Get him out of here. And all of us kind of just let it fly. Like, hey, man, if you can't play for the Niners, you know who we are. Right? You need to be coached. That bled into that bullshit with Trey. Right? We don't care that you're the number 3 overall pick. Go develop yourself. Go get better. We don't have time to coach you. We got a Super Bowl to win. Get here and be ready.
Yeah.
They better get rid of that shit.
Yeah.
They better get rid of that shit. I'm telling you, Tom.
It's an arrogant crutch to think that way.
Yeah.
And they don't have the roster to do it anymore.
They don't. That's
past,
my point.
In the past, they had the depth to do that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I would argue that's a carryover from 23, the offense was so good in the red zone that they would keep the ball for a long time. The defense became accustomed to that. Mm-hmm. Now, you're not getting those red zone scores. You're holding the ball less. The complementary football isn't happening as much, and the defense is getting tired. The defense opens games well. It doesn't close them well. Why? Because the offense isn't keeping the ball. It's the complementary element that's sort of a core assumption of this team, is that our offense is going to dominate to the point where we're going to keep converting in the red zone, and eventually we're going to force the other team to become one-dimensional on offense. That's going to help our defense get better, and then we have enough of a rotation on the defensive line to just go hunt you down. And that's how we win games. And that's what happened last year. But you can't coach that way this year when you don't have that level of depth and you don't have that level of execution in the red zone. Mm-hmm. So you have to coach based on what's happening on the field as opposed to, well, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is what we've done. Get it done or make way for somebody else. It might have worked for Kyle in the past. It doesn't work this year because you don't have the balance and you don't have the depth. And so they've got to change up accordingly. And yeah, I'm not a fan of that mindset, is that you have to react to what's actually happening on the field and coach your team to what they're doing as opposed to what you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. You have to say, go out and get it done. Sure. But recognize that you can't just rely on what worked in the past, especially when you haven't had McCaffrey. And we'll see. But hopefully with CMC back and with Juwan back, that will allow the offense to keep moving the chains. That's going to really help the defense just as much as getting players healthy, of getting Gross Matos back, etc. They're going to need that complementary football. Hopefully the offense can now elevate their game to then help the defense play at a higher level.
Agreed. So, hey, Tom, this was another great show. Yep. You're always painstakingly staying with my flaky, all over the place self. Hey, man. But Tom,
I get it, Coach. 'Tis the season, man.
Hey, man, it's Q4, baby. They want their money. But as always, this was another amazing show. We've got the 4-man front that's coming on at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Western. 6 p.m. Western Pacific. That'll be on within the hour and a half on the Coach's channel. It'll be myself, Grant Cohn, Brian G. Hensley, and Jesse Naylor. And Friday, also the Coach's meeting with Grant Cohn and Tom. You and I, we got to get together, man. We got to do something else, bro. I got the call-in show on Saturday. Tom, you want to do a pregame?
We could, sure.
Hey, we'll talk about it. We'll get it set up. Hey, but as you know, let's roll this beautiful bean footage, man. This is the Coach and Tom Jensen. The Coach's Huddle. We got the Bucs, and we better not freaking lose. This is the Coach. It's the middle of the week. I want all of you to stay low and keep your feet moving. Be good, guys.